Are you ready to start? Okay, we're starting. Okay, hello, I'm Bonnie Hunter. I'm here with the Mississippi Valley Quilters in Moline, Illinois, and I'm going to show you how to quickly debone a shirt. This is to get these shirt parts in as usable pieces as quickly as possible. I had one lady once who wrote me an email and said she'd gone through 3 seam rippers trying to get the shirt apart, and she didn't think it was worth it. Just cut the seams off. The first thing I'm going to do is cut off the collar right at the base of the collar band. Get a good pair of dress shears, just cut it off. We're just cutting beyond the stitching. Get that collar off as quickly as possible. Now there's a lot of usable fabric in a shirt that you might not think to be usable, but if you cut the collar off just above the collar band, scissors I used yesterday were better. Okay, collar band can be tossed. Also, you can save all of the buttons. Just use your seam ripper to snip the threads and save all the buttons. I won't take time to do that now. It would take way too long. I'm just cutting the collar apart right on the top stitching line. Just cut right there at that seam and snip that off. When you take the collar apart, there's usually 2 layers and a layer of interfacing. Sometimes the interfacing is fused to the collar. I will pitch that whole side if it has interfacing fused. But look, this one's separate, so that goes in the trash pile. Here's 2 usable strings for piecing. Now I'm going to come down here to the sleeve, cut the cuff off, and guess what? There's a lot of usable fabric right here in the cuff, so I'm just going to continue to cut right on the sleeve. I'd save those buttons if I needed to, if there's another line of top stitching here. A couple of good chick flick movies in a comfy recliner. Don't try to do this with your rotary cutter and your mat. It's just too many curves and pieces. So we got some more strings right there. All right, so we've got the sleeve now. I've got the shirt folded, so my sleeve is over one leg, and I'm going to cut the sleeve off. Just that fast. And while I've got the shirt right here, I'm going to come back and get rid of this seam. It's a large, fat, flat-felled seam. And just get that off of there. That goes in my trash pile. So here's our sleeve. The sleeve is narrow at one end and wide at the other. So I can't just snip and rip it or I will miss too much fabric. So I'm going to quickly cut off that seam. And on a lot of men's shirts, that's also another flat-felled seam. So it's kind of thick, so it's easier to just cut it off and get rid of it. Here's our sleeve. Get it open. There we go. At this point, come to the side of the placket. Cut straight across, snip, and rip that off. There's a bit of usable fabric right here. We call this the gizzard. You're just going to snip and rip that off. This can be pitched. That goes in the string bucket. And here's our sleeve all ready to be used to be cut into strips for making quilts. And I'm just going to really quickly cut off the other sleeve. I won't take it all the way down, but we're just going to get it off of here so I can open up the shirt. When the sleeves are off, you can come to the front of the shirt, make a snip at the bottom of the button placket, and simply rip that off. Okay? Come to the other side where the buttonhole is, make a snip, and rip that off. Sometimes, if there's not a lot of top stitching on the buttonhole placket, you can get some pretty good hunks of fabric in between those buttonholes, but this one's top stitched on both sides, so it's not worth it for me. All right, the shirt now can be opened on the sides. I make a snip here on either side of the side seam, so it's going to pull this just like a zipper. Okay, open up that one and open up this one. Had one lady yesterday say, it took me a whole hour to cut down a shirt. And I'm doing this while talking. Okay, so now I'm going to make a snip right here on the back, remove the back from the yoke. Sometimes there'll be a couple of pleats and you have to re-snip through those. So here's the shirt back. And there is a curved seam here, so I'm going to kind of cut down just a little bit and rip that hem off. And rip it off on this end as well. All right, so the shirt back is now completely seamless. I leave the shirt back whole because I might need them for alternate blocks or for setting triangles or cut big pieces of sashing or something like that. So I usually put the back aside And now I've got just the yoke in the front, so I'm going to take the yoke off at the shoulder seam here, and there's another line of top stitching, so I'm going to just snip that right there while I'm there. So here's our shirt front. I can take the hem off of the shirt bottom, just like that. Don't be afraid to rip that fabric. You're just getting rid of those seams, and it also helps you get the shirt on the straight of grain. Pockets usually have a little bit of triangular stitching or sometimes a square or something up here. So if you want to be really particular and save absolutely every inch of fabric, you're going to have to use a seam ripper to get that pocket started. But I find that it's not worth my time, and so I just kind of cut into it. Sometimes making just a little V cut gets that pocket started. Maybe. Make a little another cut there. Right through that top stitching. If you can get right through the top stitching, yeah, there we go. And then that pocket will just come right off. I do use the pockets. Pockets are great. They go in the string bucket. There's some top stitching here on the pocket. If you cut that off, even that opens up into quite a hefty little hunk. All right, that goes in the string bucket. So does the pocket itself. And now we've got the shirt front with a small hole that I can cut around. And I'll cut that other shirt front off really quickly. We're down to just the yoke right now, and the yoke has a huge amount of fabric. It's usually 2 layers. There's not interfacing in between. If you make, I've cut the shoulder seam off on that side. It's an angled seam, so you kind of need to do that with scissors because you can't just snip and rip. But down here at the base, where there's top stitching, I just make a little cut, pull that off, separate the yoke pieces, good usable fabric, and that is how you debone a shirt.